Thanks for coming today. We're so glad you could come out. We've got a beautiful day to be out and about. This is going to be a fun presentation today, I think. How many of you know how to pronounce L-O-G-L-I? Say it out loud. Oh man, that's pretty good. How many of you work at Logli's store? Stand up. If you
I'm not staring. Yeah, asking me to stand is for the birds.
How many of you shop at Logli's? Is there anybody here who's never heard of the Logli family?
And what's your name?
Well, you're in for some fun times, and I will tell you that.
What's your name?
What's my name? My name is Lois Thorson O'Donnell. My husband Tom's reminding me of that. Yeah, and okay, I'm a part of the family. Richard Logli is married to Virginia, and she was my mom's sister.
Yeah.
So he was my uncle, and she's my aunt.
And you also worked at Logli.
And yes, I did. And I have to tell you, lovely getup that they brought me today. I said this isn't a size small, is it? It used to fit. Well, we've got a lot to talk about today. What we're going to do is Mark's going to come and tell us about the store, and you guys interject at any time. If you have a story or a question, just raise your hand and join the conversation. Then when he's done talking, we'll just let you get up and look at all of these artifacts that they've brought. You might recognize some of the faces in there. I know there's some Koheiser kids in there too somewhere. And then there's treats, of course. So you'll want to get your coffee and get a brownie or something yummy to do. And we hope to have it all wrapped up about 2:15-ish or so. So it shouldn't last that long. But while you're here today, the house upstairs and the barn will be open. And so please, especially if you've never been here before, go look at all of the stuff we've got in these wonderful two buildings. And also, if you're feeling very generous today, we do have donation boxes around. And it helps us keep the power on in these two buildings. So anyway, we thank you for coming. And I want to let you know, we have the expert here today to tell us all about Logli's stores.
Meat department telephone, please. Meat department telephone. Courtesy service on one, please. Hi, everybody. By the introduction, I think I'd be preaching to the choir today. I mean, it's great. I'm Mark Logli. My dad was Richard, and my grandfather was Pietro, and my uncle Rico. You probably all know those people from way back when, the entire family. And we were merchants of the groceries and other items throughout the entire history. We can start at the very beginning. You probably know this. My grandfather was an immigrant from Italy. He was not born in this country. He came over to this country around the late 1800s, 1890, 98, and he started working in the coal mines. And that's what he did for 5 or 6 or 7 years. And he got married to my grandmother, and my grandmother was a great baker. She could make some wonderful Italian bread. Well, working at the coal mines on Kearney and other places around there were a lot of Italian men there with no wives, no mothers, nothing. And they craved Italian bread. So every night, my grandmother would make extra loaves of bread, and my grandfather would bring them to the mining camp with him. And pretty soon, he was making more money selling bread than he was working in the coal mine. And then he was able to get a horse and buggy, and he started having mining supplies, and he would hatch a little delivery service. And pretty soon, it just got to the point where he decided, I'm going to get out from underneath the ground, I'm going to go up on, and I'm going to start a store. And then in 1908, he had his first bakery. And they generally, had the bakery to start with, and then it just added things. It always changed about the middle of the teens before World War I. They moved out of the bakery and over to another store, and they started selling shoes and buttons and galoshes, alarm clocks, just all sorts of sundries, all kinds of other information. And then in the 1920s, he moved again to another store and expanded to more of general merchandise. Cigars, he had Maytag washing machines, he had kerosene stoves, the boots and the knickknacks and everything else like this. So that was another change in his business model, that he figured it out that if he was going to stay in business, he had to continuously change. Well, that worked out fine, and then around the time of the Depression, he got into the grocery business, and I knew that it was really tough times for the Depression. People there's probably nobody around here that was alive during the Depression that can remember it at all, but the stories are everywhere. It was tough sledding for everybody at that time. Somehow they made it through the Depression. A lot of people didn't make it. They lost their farms, they lost their business. They moved to California. Well, by the grace of God and his hard work, he was able to keep the store together. And then in the mid-1930s, it really started to grow into a nice affair. It was the IGA store was the first one, and I got over on that corner, on that side there, I have some of the artifacts.
Do you want me to go hold them up?
Well, you can if you want to.
Okay.
That'd be fine.
We dated this to 1934 ad.
Where you
We
could,
dated that because we looked at the calendar and the years, it could have been 34 or 45. But then I did some research on the little Cloyd hat that the lady is wearing, and that's definitely fashions from the mid-1930s.
so you can, most things were 10 cents, 5 cents. You read some of the prices of like the ground beef, 2 pounds for 23 cents. And inflation, right? Now, it's pretty crazy. And then on that counter, also, I couldn't bring the coffee grinder that was part of the store, or the cash register, which weighs about 400 pounds.
Check this out afterwards, yes.
Yes.
Big coffee grinder, we have that at
But
our
that
house.
is one of the first electric cash registers that NCR made in 1921. And it,
Yeah, my dad had it, my grandfather also.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, they're heavy,
yes.
yeah.
And they used that clear up into the mid-1950s, even at their other store. Now, the store that we're talking about now was uptown, where I think there's a photography place on one side of it, and is it split up into multiple businesses? Now, anyway, but it still has that same entrance and that same door. We have multiple pictures of everybody standing, right where the old doorway was at, right at, it's just, so every time I come to town, I go by there and I look at it, and I think, well, that was the old Logli store from a long time ago. And I have a lot of photographs of the different times and spaces, old uptown Ankeny and the PA Logli delivery truck IGA, and it's my grandfather's very early delivery Model Ts. So he went from horse and buggy to Model T to Ford sedan, so he was right with the program. Getting back to the next phase of the operation,
You want to go through,
what
talk
that?
about some of these items?
Well, we can look at them later.
Okay.
If anybody has questions. Moving down to the highway was the big move from the uptown, of course, and that is what's been going on in the economy. The old uptowns in all towns, everywhere, town squares, everybody bails out and they go out to the road and the highway. So, yes.
I can recall sitting in meetings, monthly meetings here at the Historical Society back in the late 90s. And the gals then, like, Bonnie Ballard and Myrtle Sexauer and Tina Batani, they shared they were afraid the uptown was going to move out to the outskirts. And it's,
The country, yeah.
Yeah, well, and of course it was just a micronism of what went on with the entire, everywhere in the United States it's that way. And it's still kind of going that way, although there's a lot of boutiques and a lot of good individuals, small business people that are kind of, getting the niche markets and getting back. And I really think that's nice to see that. And ones can make it work again. But the move to the highway, people don't know this, but we never owned that building on the highway, which now is a granite place. That was built by V.W. Smith, and it was leased for all that long period of time. I don't know why. Of course, the property was owned by Smith, and I'm sure he thought one time, well, maybe I'll build a gas station there someday or nothing. But it worked out fine. And the construction was started that, I think, sometime in late 1950. And then in grand opening, 1951, on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, January 25th, 26th, and 27th. And at that time, they had already had 43 years of business in Ankeny, pretty much. But what I liked about this, and this happened a lot, I'll tell you a story, he always had, bring in your eggs. The best price paid for eggs. Now, when was the last time you've heard of a farmer bringing eggs in to sell it to somebody?
mother and grandmother always had to go to Logli's to do their trading,
Yes.
so they traded eggs.
Yes, and you know why? And my dad told me that my grandfather would bring cartons and cartons of eggs home that they didn't need. Okay, you're a housewife, and your only income is, farm wife is chickens and eggs. Okay, Loglis will give you 15 cents a dozen, and the other places will give you 12 cents a dozen. Where are you going to bring your eggs? All right, and then you get your money. What are you going to do? Well, I'll just buy something when I'm here. So I don't know, was it the Alts farmer or some farmer north of town? They would haul crates of eggs out to him and would feed them to his hogs because there's no way they could sell all the eggs. And even in 1951, believe it or not, with the supermarket, they still had, we pay the highest price for your eggs. So of course you can't do that now. I think it's illegal, isn't it? About everything is illegal. Oh, and on the back of that, there was a promotion later at Super Value had where they called it Arctic Snowboard. I have another one over there. Is you come in the store as a kid and this would fold up and then you'd go sliding down the hill. I mean, this was high-tech entertainment back then. No batteries needed. That was the best thing about it. Well, and a lot of these pictures here are from the early, very, very early years of the store in 51, 52, 53. It shows some outside shots. And it had something I'm not sure of. Does anybody remember Dale Ellsworth talent show? Did anybody hear that? Evidently, it went on for a while because this actually one of the radio stations was there, KSO at the time, and they would record this and they would broadcast it. And they had all these people would show up, and it looks like a band of banjo players and a couple guitars, maybe a mandolin, and they would actually, in the store itself, they'd have talent contests that would go on. So it was a big promotion. And another promotion was, some of you probably remember this, was the free feed in the parking lot in the summertime.
Yes.
Yes, you remember that.
Yeah.
And the people would come from miles around because guess what? It was free. If you want to get people to come into your store, just a 4-letter word right there and that'd get you going all the way. But what would happen was that all the vendors, the dairy people, the ice cream people, the colonial bread people, they would have representatives, wholesalers, Hockenberg Reuben and all these other ones that were there, and they would help contribute items, and all we had to do was prepare it and have the place for it and serve it. And there were literally, I don't know how many thousands of people would go through there in a day, but the line snaked all the way past the funeral home a lot of times, up the block, which is, of course, next to the store. Everybody knows where the funeral home used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, people were lined up, their cars all the way up past the Congregational Church, parked on the road, and old V.W. Smith, and it was quite the pandemonious thing. And that went on for about 2 or 3 years, and then it got so big and so out of control, it just couldn't do it.
1959-ish.
Yes, it was this 1960, I think, because of Ankeny National Bank, as you can see across the road, it hadn't been built yet. I don't remember when Ankeny National Bank was built. It was 61, wasn't it? Okay, so this dates it at 59 or 60.
I'm gonna guess it's about 59 because I'm in the bottom middle picture with my 2 little
Oh
brothers.
Yeah,
They just
yeah.
moved to the house on
And that's them. In fact, some of you may recognize some of the people in here if you have a chance to look at it closer. Bring your magnifying glasses. That's the only thing. And then Lois's mom worked at the store in the meat department.
Yeah, she worked there from 1953 to 1975 when it closed.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And family business was a family business. My parents, or my mom didn't work there that much. She had to take care of the home front. But I worked there, my sister worked there, Lois worked there, Denise worked there, Sharon worked there, Bob worked there. Let's see.
We're in the family.
I'm talking about family members that used to work there. And then
Oh, Rick, or Peter.
Peter, was there. But the thing about the Logli store at that time, it was a family business. Not just family that, are blood relatives. Look at the people that worked there. In your family, how many people worked at Logli?
3 out of 4.
3 out of 4 worked at Logli. The Pitts family. How many worked at Logli? 4 of you worked at Logli, right? And there's the Graber, Dean Graber, and what was the other Graber kid? Mike Graver, they both worked there. Who else worked? I'm trying to rack
Well, we
my,
were talking about the other night, you could remember, but.
the Huttons, yeah, Terry Hutton, Asa, and then, let's see, from Elkhart, it was Vernon Wilson, Gary Wilson, and her daughter, Gail Wilson. All three of those had worked there.
And from up north.
Yeah, and Bruce Hokel and Brian Hokel both worked there. And I know there's some other combinations. The Parishes, right? It was Tom Parrish and then his brother, Steve, who was Postmaster Parrish, older.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Bill. Bill worked and I know there's more that I'm missing. And this is just the time that I was around. But the thing of it is we all got along perfectly in the workplace like a family does. But now you stop and think about it. In this modern day and age, it's almost against the law to have one of your relatives working with you according to some of the rules and regulations. What was wrong with the theory? My theory is you had someone from one family that worked with you and it was a good worker, high probability that someone else from the family would be a good worker, and so on and so forth. And of course, it was different back then. Family meant something. It's not the same family structures that we have now, of course. Just even the whole concept of the community business, of the local small. Ankeny was a small town back then, let me tell you. I get lost when I come to Ankeny now if I don't know where I'm at. It's just crazy. Crazy.
I think of the patience that your dad and Rico had with all of us teenagers working there. I remember somebody popped open, or those pop open biscuits. They would pop open
They would get too warm, and they'd start throwing them.
Yeah.
Oh, and then we had an incinerator in the back at one time. We used to burn all the boxes up, but when the pollution was no problem. Well, there's some of these guys, they thought it would be fun to throw cans of beans in there and aerosol cans in there like this. And they threw it in there and then leave, and then somebody else comes and opens up the door and boom! I think it was Dan Bangs, and I'm not sure who else was the other guy. They both got all the hair burned off their face. And fireballs up the chimney and everything else.
Somebody locked me in the freezer one day. I was afraid I wasn't going to get out of there. They just thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, but the small business like Logli back then. Do you remember when the fire whistle used to blow anytime because it was all volunteer rescue unit? They had I don't know. It wasn't even an ambulance. It was like a sport utility vehicle, sort of. I know it didn't have any shocks or nothing. And firemen and everything. The whistle would go off any time of the day. And at Logli, guess what happened about 2 or 3 minutes later? Ring, ring. What's going on? What happened? You hear what's going on? It's W044741. They punch it out and it'd be the store. Do you remember that number then? Forever and ever and ever. But it was a community service, I guess. Because obviously they blew the fire whistle because the cell phones weren't around, and most of the volunteers, they worked outside, they had jobs, they worked at the lumber yard, they were around where they couldn't get a hold of, and they heard the whistle, and that's what they did. So the store kind of was a filter center for what's going on. Speaking of a filter center, back in the 50s, do you remember the Cold War, right? And the Soviet Union and the power, and you remember all the fallout shelters, all the things going on about there's where you have to go if you see the flash, lay down behind your desk, stuff like this. We go through this whole rigmarole of the Cold War. Well, there was a program called the Ground Observer Corps, and Logli was chosen to be a center to get registered, to get signed up. These were transparents that stuck on the windows and the doors, so you go in and out the doors. He says, help protect your country from a surprise air attack. And then the phone number, of course, was W044741. So supposedly if you saw a Russian aircraft, call the store and let us know anyway. But it also, what was the best thing about the store was the best thing about this was that they encouraged young people 7 years old or older can become ground observers. Actual Air Force craft, classified information, and they have observing says you can save lives. Sneak attack by the enemy. We have chinks in our armor from our radar. We need 1 million eyes in the sky, and so they had this ground observers corps is organized that you had teams of people that would go out and watch the skies literally on any time. And for us 7 and 8 year old kids, oh my God, we couldn't wait to get in on the battle. I remember that. I think it was Max Gordon and Jimmy Garwood, and I don't remember who the next of us. We decided we were going to form our own little wing. So if we had so many hours, we'd get a bronze wing. If so many hours, silver, and write it down in the log book and gold and everything. We thought that was great. I got my binoculars. Somebody got a World War II canteen and a belt and strapped it on, and we'd climb on top of the chicken house on 318 Ankeny Boulevard where we used to live, and we'd look the skies and looking around. At first, all of us were there for hours at a time, and then after about 2 or 3 days, it started getting dark early, and the church bells would start ringing at 5:30. Mean we had to go home for dinner, and so that was in 1958, and so we just kind of decided, well, it's fun. The war's not ever going to come here. But I guess no Soviet bombers ever made it over Ankeny, so we must have did our job, right? Think? But as fate would have it, 23rd of September, 1959, I was at my house on Ankeny Boulevard, right across from the Dairy Suite. Highway 69 was just a 2-lane road at that time, which Ankeny Boulevard. Black limousine approaches from the north, heading south. Powercade. Right 50 foot. Nikita Khrushchev was in Iowa, and he was driving back to Des Moines Airport. I thought, WO44741. I saw my first asset. First bomber. It was the commander-in-chief of the Soviet Empire. So... that's ironic, isn't it? Do you remember getting out of school, going out to the John Deere plant, and watching that one time that he came through twice? I don't know if you remember that or not.
I remember walking up there.
Yeah, we all got out of, and now they had a program in there. Can you imagine now if a world leader would go someplace and they'd say, he's going to be here at this time, he's going to be there at this time, everybody come, no security or nothing. It's just, it wasn't much of a Cold War, was it? I didn't think it was. Well, that was kind of fun on that thing. Does anybody have any general questions or any comment? I'd like to hear someone that used to work here, some of the best stories that they had about everything. So, Bob?
As you remember, there were 2 Bobs when I worked there.
Yeah. Bob, yeah? There's Bob Whitlatch.
Anyway, Bob Whitlatch and myself, right?
Uh-huh.
And one day Richard came in because I hated being called Bobby. I still do, by the way, Lois. Anyway, your dad came in. He says, I got to figure out how we're going to pay you 2 guys. And I said, what's that? Pointed at Bob Whitlatch, and he said, you're going to be Bob A. And he pointed at me and he says, you're going to be Bob B.
Bob B. Well, I do have a real favorite story. This is when we used to close at Christmas Eve, early because everything was just all pandemonium, trying to get out and get going. And I remember this guy came down the produce aisle and he asked my dad for a hat. They wanted a half a head of lettuce, and that's it. Who buys a half a head of lettuce? And we wanted to get out of there and everything, so he grabbed the lettuce. It was all wrapped up in cellophane and everything. He walked to the back room to the produce department. He was going to cut it in half. He didn't know the guy was right behind him that wanted the lettuce, and he says, some dumb son of a gun wants a half a head of lettuce, and blah, like this. I saw him, and this guy wants the other half. That's called thinking on your feet when you have to.
That's great. Mark, do you remember any contest they had? Because I know my mom got a phone call and it said, how is sugarcane? Is it grown as a bush, a plant, or whatever? And I think the answer was a bush. But she won a thing at Logali's in to race up and down the aisles and put as many groceries
Y-
in.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, my
And I
goodness.
don't know if that was the store that sponsored it or somebody else.
It was probably C&H Sugar that probably sponsored it or something. It wasn't Great Western because they make beet sugar, so, you know, it had to be. Of course, I guess that makes no difference, does it? Yes, sir.
I remember when they had the bread wars.
Yes.
They were selling bread for a nickel, trying to
Yeah. Oh,
less than Alwell's were. or something.
right, right. Although the bread companies themselves were they would have they would hire, like Colonial would hire someone to go and come into the store where the Wonder Bread was at and take one of these little handy dandy things and just slice every top of the bread open, so when someone would try to go open it up and pick it up, it'd be sliced and you'd have to buy something else. So that's, I guess you could call it cutthroat competition now, right? Well, speaking of these, anyone that's ever worked at a grocery store knows what these little guys are. The little single edge razor blades. They work pretty good if you didn't get the box too close to your leg and have about 2 stitches like I did one time. But you know that goes with that goes with. And of course you can't go anywhere without your gun. You remember these little guys here? You in the change. Now see, when you change the price, the rubber gets so sticky with all the ink on it, where you have to put little pads in ink, and the stuff is, you know, just won't come off. And pretty soon, you could always tell a good Logli worker because they had blue fingertips. Because every time he went like this. So Newton will stamp every one of the things like this. So that's one of our, and this, by the way, is the official dress that we had at the time in the 60s and 70s. Except for the hat, and that comes from the modern Logli store. So we'll get to that
I
too.
remember in the 70s, Mark, that the kids, Roxanne, your brother started this too, and I think Jerry and them, you had to fold that apron up so it was only come halfway down, you know, so it looked nice and neat. It didn't go all the way down. You had to fold it and.
Well, that's when the miniskirt was going too, right? So everybody. So I don't know. Oh, okay. Well, let's see where we're at here. Yes.
Do you remember the day your dad came in with the roller skates and skated around the store singing?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I don't know if he was drunk or no. I couldn't tell you.
That was something to see.
Or on the microphone.
Yeah. Well, he was, and of course we had some of our customers were really entertaining. We had one guy who would come in and he'd take the microphone at the cash register and he would make a sound like a troop of horses running. They go, and he'd go, you know, like this, and you hear it through the whole store. Every time he'd come in and he'd do that, and, you know, and I'd be in the back room all of a sudden, oh God, there he is again, you know. This would go on. I think it was Penny Ballard's stepfather, wasn't it? He worked for the sheriff department in Polk County. He lived right by the old bus barn down at the end of.
Who was the guy that was the hockey player? And he would come in.
John Annabelle.
And he would grab that loudspeaker and Richard, are you in here anywhere?
And of course we had after a while you got to know whose voice it was. You know, they had their little slang, like a radio personality. They'd ask for meat department produce and Richard telephone Mark, and you could just tell. Sometimes they would inflex it a certain way, and they could show she's having a bad day today. Listen to her talk, you know, just crazy like that. But a lot of the people that worked for us for a long period of time. So I guess it's kind of unusual in this day and age. I go to a lot of stores anywhere, and they have their little badge, and they say first year, everybody, you know, because they just don't seem to stay in.
Ask them about the little angel food.
Oh yeah, they're. Does anybody know what these are? Yeah. Have you remember these? These were panel cakes, correct? You win a panel cake, but there's none there. Sorry, they're out of business. These would come already baked in plastic containers, and we had an old wooden stump, and we take them, and they'd be in plastic bags, and in Illinois they were made, and they would bring these in there, and it was the best angel food cake, sponge cake you ever have. And you sit there and you have to go whack, 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 whack to loosen them up, and wrap them up in the bag, and then put the can back, and then bakery people would come and pick it up next week, and they'd take and wash it, and we'd had stacks of those. And like this would, you know, go through 100 cakes or 200 cakes in a couple weeks or week period, and there'd be stacks of these pans all around the store. And sometimes they would stick together and you couldn't get them out. So
I bet it was like 89 cents a cake too. Or
They were,
Yeah.
they were really, really good cakes.
Remember, used to send us down to Highland Park Bakery.
Yes.
Big wooden things and slide the trays of the.
And we had a pickup
rolls
truck
and
every
stuff
day.
in
We
there.
would
Yeah,
go back and then Lois, I think you would end up wrapping bakery.
Yeah.
And we had Tony Volcano and Jill, and also that was another combination.
Yeah, yeah.
The Volcano family.
Yeah, the whole family.
And you'll be thinking about this, and you're gonna more names are gonna pop up.
Well, and we got to know the people in town too, so even if you just shop there, they'd walk in the door, hey, yeah.
Richard hired a lot of the athletes, especially when Hy-Vee came in.
Yeah.
Richard, you gotta work these hours, you can't work. Richard worked with everybody. What
Yeah.
hours can you work?
And the people that worked there, they were workers. They were full-time athletes, full-time students, and they'd come in there and they'd slam groceries together and they'd work till 9 o'clock, sometimes 10 o'clock, late. And they wouldn't get in trouble. They wouldn't do anything. They were focused on life, being something. And yes.
I was just in Fairfield.
Aha.
I saw a building that said Logli on it.
That's it.
That's it.
Related?
That's ours.
That's ours.
That's ours.
I wondered.
Yeah. So Logli went pretty well for a long time, and then Ankeny grew some. Des Moines grew even more. Competition started showing up. Several stores, everything. You could see the writing on the wall. It wasn't working right. It just there was no innovation there. And then my father had a heart attack at age 47, and at that time there was hardly any. If you had a heart attack, you better stay in bed or you're going to die. Basically, there's no open heart surgery for a long time or nothing. Hardly any procedures. The drugs, they didn't have anything. Well, he survived that, but it knocked him out of the store. And that was in 1973 when that happened. Same year, and then the tornado hit that summer. The following summer, right? Okay, and the tornado made all the difference. Actually, it did more than blow half Ankeny away. It blew me clear down to southeastern Iowa in the process. What happened at that time? Yes.
I just want to know, didn't you used to have an upstairs at the?
At the other store, there was an upstairs.
I have a picture somewhere with a bunch of steps going up.
Yeah, and they had a little old elevator that went up there too, a rope drawn. Yeah, that's where when the Bilo store had it, it was still there. I remember going up and down that elevator sometimes because my aunt owned the building. Enos owned the building, or your dad did. So, yeah. So anyway, what happened was, at that time, we decided that we wanted to sell the store. Easter Super Value had been dabbling, but they were going, well, I don't know, we don't really want to buy it. And then the tornado hit Ankeny. It blew away Hy-Vee store. It blew away Dunn's Market. It severely damaged the other market on the other side. And Logli store had 2 broken windows.
Oh, wow.
And we were in business at 8 o'clock the next morning. We were, doing things. And then it didn't take long. Phone ran out right out. After a week or so, all of a sudden here comes Easter Super Value. Oh, we want to buy your store now. So I was out of a job, kind of more or less, and I just was living out in the country. And I decided to get away. Time to regenerate, do something else for a while. So I moved to southeastern Iowa in the Fairfield area, and I bought a 90-acre farm and worked for farmers, had a good time. Didn't have a phone for a long time. Didn't really do anything except work and go to bed early, wake up early. Thank God I'm a country boy, It was just a really good, learned a lot about life that I couldn't when I was working. And I grew up a lot in northern Iowa on my Norwegian side farms. We'd go and see them every summer, and I'd work out there, and I'd just enjoy it. So, but lo and behold, I did have some retail experience, and I was familiar with a new operation coming up, a growing operation called Casey's General Stores. You've heard of them, no doubt. And it worked out fine. I was able to get a franchise. Then in 1978, I got the franchise early 78 and built a store in Mount Pleasant and opened up in December of 1978. And at the same time, we were dabbling in Fairfield, my dad and I were, and we got a location in Fairfield where we're at right now. It's Casey's. And then the franchise agreements ran out after a certain amount of time. It was in the contract. When you reach a certain year, It was, the franchise was over with. You could either sell the company or you go independent. So that's what happened. In the mid-1990s, we changed from a Casey's store to Logli's store once again. And even using some of the same logo that we had that was on some of the other ones. So that means that 115 years ago, my grandfather started his first store in Iowa. And 115 years later, we still have one. It's Logli store. And we have evolved from, well, we do some donuts and we do some bacon, so I guess we're back to the baking world. But we sell gasoline, sell tobacco still, sell beer, and sell really good pizza. It's one of the best pizzas in the whole southeastern Iowa.
Voted the best pizza in Fairfield.
Well, no, the best convenience store.
Oh, the best convenience
We came in second
We came in second.
on pizza. Wasn't bad though. And the store they got awards all the time for Royal Club 56, Richard, Rico, Pete Logli. This is a 1956 award. We got, there's another one, 1967, a 25-year anniversary of being a store, and it hasn't changed yet. I'll go over here. We got this in 2018 from the Blue Moon Brewing Company, Logli store, Fairfield, Iowa. So, as one of the top sellers in that region, so in southeastern Iowa. So once again, of course, we have these now. This is an antique. Nobody does checks anymore, so this is something that goes into the relic department. And we've done a few things like shirts and some hats and some other promotions throughout the whole deal to try to keep our business going, keep it, young and vibrant. And we got to have new customers every day, because if you quit getting new customers, then you go down. It doesn't take very long at all. And this, of course, being a family business, it was tough when this happened. This is the end of Logli's in 1975. It shows everything, all the equipment that your mom worked on, all the shopping carts that people got groceries in, all the shelving, everything that was there was all sold off to the highest bidder. It was in. And being a family business, the auctioneer was my uncle. Or no, what was our cousin. Right. Right.
By marriage.
Yes, by marriage. So you see, we just kept it going, didn't we? The same thing. So that's kind of basically, we got some other artifacts in this area here. You can just kind of see that. But we are, go ahead.
I keep going back to your beginning and wonder about your poor grandmother and how long she baked bread.
Oh, she baked bread all the time, all day long and everything.
For how many years?
Well, I don't know how many years it was, but I remember my dad telling me that he said it was incredible. He had a horse and buggy. Somehow he got a buckboard wagon and a horse, so he was able to have, haul things. That was the first innovation he figured out. He was a very innovative man. In fact, he was so proud of being an American. After he was born in Italy, left there, came at 20 years old. We have his certificate of naturalization that he had on there. And this shows you that immigrants are the ones, a lot of immigrants that came over, they had to work in the coal mines. They had to do the jobs that the people around here didn't want to do. And we can go to today, and there's still people that want to come to this country that want to do the things that need to be done for themselves, because they have nothing to lose. They have nothing to look forward to. So, I'm not against immigration. I think we should have immigration, but legal immigration, and keep it under control, because that's what built this country is immigrants. Unless your name is Running Bear or Little Fawn, you came from another place. Probably, I guess it's Europe. Looking at everybody right now, it's pretty darn close. And we're close to that time of the year. It's Memorial Day, and I would just like to take a moment to remember all those family members, friends, customers, everyone that helped make this one of the most wonderful experiences my life has ever had. So we have just a little silence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Anybody in here remember collecting gold bond stamps?
Oh, yeah.
I still have some, but I couldn't find them.
Oh,
In the little books.
Yeah.
It's not filled out yet. I still had a couple pages to go.
I think I have an ashtray on a stand that Mom got because people used to have those in their
Yes.
living rooms, you know.
It was a nice catalog.
Oh my gosh, you can get the best stuff.
Yeah.
The original.
Yes. We,
I have on my porch that I put flowers in.
my mother's still alive. She's 97 years old. Yes.
Yeah, I wonder, my girlfriend lived right next to a wine gardener.
Oh yeah, the wine gardener. Dick, yeah. Oh, the wine gardeners were good friends of my the Logli family from years gone by.
Several boys, but Joanne was the youngest one.
Yeah,
Yep.
so everybody feel free to come in.
If anybody is just, I'm sure anybody got more questions or comments.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Just
Well, we grew up across the street
Yep.
from the Loglis on the corner, a block away from the store, but Grandma Logli lived across the street, your
right,
grandmother.
right.
And then Sadie Chu lived with her.
And I when I was born, I lived upstairs for 2 years up there.
Okay.
And then in '67, I moved back there. So it just kind of,
Full circle.
it's a big circle.
Well, then every Friday morning, my mother would take her red wagon, 1 block, to Loglis and do her weekly shopping.
Yep. And I remember Therese Pitts would come in almost on a daily basis. She was used to going to the market in France every day. And very rarely would she ever buy like 2 weeks worth of groceries. I know why she had to come to the market every day to buy food. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt. They had a bunch of hungry hobos out there working. And Leroy worked them real hard, and they got good appetites out of the whole thing. That's for sure. Yes.
When you and Lois and me and Ed, Darrell worked in the meat department back there.
Yeah, we went back and forth.
And what was that butcher's name? Do you remember him?
Well,
Alexander?
there was Francis Alexander, and then there was Dean Mosman, and then there was another one. It was Bob Lubberton, was a heavy set guy. He was at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. Francis Alexander ran the meat department.
Franny, yeah.
Yeah, Franny. Yeah, and
And do you remember T.J. Graffeller from Folk City? And then Smith, Francis Smith. Yep. And then Verna Wilson, the main three.
and there was
Three
a redhead
cashiers.
with the,
That was Elizabeth Randolph, who ran the produce department for a long time.
yeah. The old
What
gals
did
kind
Tony
of
do?
controlled the
Tony
front.
Volcano.
Tony Volcano was like an assistant manager. So, and his two of his kids worked there also, I think.
Working with your
Too.
dad, Lois. Ole Olson.
Yeah, and your dad worked in the produce department too.
Yeah, but who was Ole? Did he come in with Easter's or?
We called your dad Ole.
Oh, you
Because
know?
he's Scandinavian,
He
yeah,
always had
Scandinavian.
these Norwegian jokes. Yeah, Lloyd.
Yeah.
Oh, he was a character.
Yeah, he had some,
Mark, I
jokes.
want to say that I just loved your dad, Richard. And everyone in town knew him, and when the store was long gone, he was walking up and down Main Street, and he was meeting people and talking to people all the time.
He was a prince of Logan Street
And he still roller skated up and down the sidewalk.
when he wasn't riding his Vespa.
I just
When he wasn't riding his Vespa.
moved up to the Vespa.
Yes.
When I was in 3rd grade, which would be the 54, 55 school years, and I don't know if they did this every year or not, but everybody got to put their name in a box or.
And they were,
pot or
yeah.
something. And they drew out, and I won an American Flyer electric train.
Wow.
Which my dad put on a 4x8 sheet of plywood on top of our ping pong table in the basement, so we could go downstairs and run the train. And I still have it, I think it's in the basement, I don't.
Yeah.
One of my kids has it.
They haven't destroyed it. You're lucky. Usually they don't make it past generation. Denise.
And then Hazel Randolph used to wrap the groceries with the hot little
Yep.
iron, or the produce.
Hazel worked there for a while. Georgia West actually worked there for a while too when she was older, part-time.
Hazel used to let me stand back there and help her, and I was like in 2nd or 3rd grade.
They had that little iron that they did there. Yep.
I had to be very careful. She kind of stood there like this while I did it. She let me run the iron thing and help her work.
Denise had something.
Denise, did you?
Yeah, I'd just be curious if anybody remembers at Christmas time, we always had dolls and toys about the produce department.
Oh yeah.
And these bridal dolls and,
I still have mine.
oh, you do?
I do. Should've brought it.
They used to give away dishes too. Remember that? You could get dishes, all this stuff, brownstone wares and everything. Every week they'd have a set be available to come and get your ticket punched, and you could have that.
I have a question.
Yes.
I want to know if anybody else who worked at the store used to check out girls from the milk cooler. From the milk cooler.
Yeah.
That's how Mark checked me out.
Well, I checked you out at the counter. I took your money.
Well, you did check me out there.
But I only wanted your love.
Denadale, do you have any stories? You used to tell some stories.
The old Dennis.
Fun with Rico and Richard both.
And you and Bruce Hopel.
Bruce Hopel, on Sundays, Bruce and I would run the store by ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody else was there at all, so I'd be the checker and he'd be the stalker and sacker and.
Yep, you always had your white shirts on too, don't you? I think I have some photographs of you somewhere. You used to have a Saab, didn't you?
You got that picture.
Did you see the old Saab?
Yes, I did.
The old parade. So we used to promote a lot, have parades and have all kinds of contests. I remember a long time ago, it's like, of course I have some of this stuff, I didn't bring it with, but they had an old license plate contest back in the early 50s. Well, whoever brought the oldest license plate in could get, some prize and everything. You had to put your name on the back of the license plate and leave it. Well, dozens and dozens of license plates came in, and the oldest one was like a 1919 or 1918, and the guy won the prize. We kept the license plate. They kept all the license plates. So I got a stack of old license plates from the 1920s and 30s and the teens that were part of the promotion. People were just happy to get rid of them back then, for they got something out of it. It was grand prize. Everybody won some sort of a prize, which we did a lot. On the 47th anniversary, that would have been 1955. The appreciation days, the free hot dogs, free cola, free orchids, free cigars, free balloons and ice cream, a special gift for the ladies. Guess what you got, ladies? Genuine Logli store spatulas. That's what you got. That was part of the free gift, so there you go.
We gotta talk about the parking lot, though.
Oh, the parking, that was American graffiti on steroids. Logli store parking lot.
After 9 o'clock on.
It was every time there were people before they go to school, they'd meet there in the morning sometimes. And they would have, in the wintertime, it'd be out in the cold, and there would be, Wes Blair would be there, and Terry Pierce, and all these other people would be there, and it was just fun.
Recently, I talked to Sid Conkle, that
Yeah.
had been an Ankeny policeman
I know
for
who he
years
is.
and years, and when he was in high school, he said they so appreciated that our dads would let them use that parking lot every night, but, they couldn't get into mischief.
Oh, they got into mischief, all right. One guy got into mischief so much they ended up crawling up on top of the phone booth. It was in the front of the store. The pop machine, the phone booth, and then walked across the road, had an hatchet, and was trying to whack itself into the store. And they got in the store and they broke in and they did some burglary on it. I know who did it, but I'm not going to say the name on that.
But Sid said that they patrolled the parking lot themselves because nobody wanted to lose that opportunity. They bring lawn chairs.
Especially when the Sadell kids came up, man, they get off of our turf, Go back to the north side. So, that was, like I said, it was like American graffiti. All the souped up cars would be there. Yes.
And that was a big loss when the store was open for 24 hours after a while.
Yeah.
And then we couldn't park in the parking lot anymore. And I remember that was a big loss.
Well, everyone was relegated to the west end of the parking lot.
It was still allowed then.
Yeah, they weren't hanging out around there. Yes.
My husband was a police officer from 7 to 72. And then they couldn't park in the parking lot because he spent half of his time on duty at night getting the kids out of the Logli.
Yeah.
And it was because they were open 24 hours. But he had to clear the parking lot and keep it cleared.
Well, there was a lot of problems that were going on. There were some customers were being harassed by some rowdy people would show up. Not everybody were little angels. They,
I could name a few names.
Yes, but now they're all older. They're gone anyway. So, yeah.
We're in Italy.
They're from the province of Modena, actually right next to Toscana, just a few kilometers. A little place called Piondelagoti, Pievapelago, that little region, Rio Lenato, the same where Kim Lamberti's grandparents came from. And most Italian immigrants that are in this region all came from that little area. It'd be like Polk County, you know. It's on the Apennine region. It's between. It's not far from Firenze. It's not far from Florence. It's north. It's south of the Po River, but it's north of Rome quite a ways. It's not far from Pisa. It's in that kind of area of where Tuscany's at.
It's
so.
about west of Florence.
Yeah,
A little bit
yeah.
north and west of.
We got Bob Fontana here today, and was it your grandfather that had the store uptown?
No, it's my dad's uncle.
Your dad's
Yeah,
uncle?
so it'd be my grandfather's brother.
Now, who are the basketball players?
That's my dad and his two brothers.
Okay.
I brought some stuff for you to look at.
Okay, did you see this picture? Where's this picture right here?
Here, you're talking about this one right here?
Yes.
That's from the scrapbook.
This scrapbook, but this is the actual Des Moines Register photograph right here. Yep. That's when Ankeny was going to the state tournament, the basketball, and for some reason, didn't your dad work there for a while?
And his two brothers.
Yeah, and two brothers worked. Of course, there you go. There's some more. And so they had a staged photograph, of course, and said, well, we want to have the boys shoot, you know, they practiced being good basketball players by using grapefruit and hoops like this. Well, they weren't around, so Richard and Rico volunteered to do it. So
you want to read the caption there, buddy? Or you want me to read it?
You can read it. I don't have my glasses on.
It says, Main Street Ankeny was quiet and deserted Thursday afternoon. Inside the stores along the way, there were few customers. Inside the supermarket where Ankeny's famous brother team, Ray and Ron Fontana, worked, Rico Logli left and his brother Richard Wright show how the Fontana brothers used to use rotten grapefruit to practice. So, anyway.
There was a lot of sports practices in the back room. I played ice hockey for quite a bit. So we'd always have hockey sticks and balls back there, and you know, playing goalies and things like this. It was just all part of the thing, you know.
There's your dad and Rico right there when the three brothers played. And
right.
These are relatives, but this was in the Des Moines Register too.
And you know, and I have the programs. I should get those for you from the state tournament. The actual program. Do you have those?
My dad left them behind.
Yeah. Okay. I got some of those too.
And then here's your grandfather painting the truck when they went to state tournament.
Oh yeah, that is PA, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. He's proud of the Italian boys, wasn't he? Huh?
Yeah.
Well, the Fontanas were from the same region in Italy.
Yeah,
Piano delle Gote. We're probably related, actually. I wouldn't be surprised. You know how they lived. How many generations lived there?
Oh.
10, 15, 20.
Yeah, way back.
You know what happens. Oh, there's one more thing I forgot to tell you.
Oh, yeah.
These were during World War II. Okay, this is star families. You'd hang these in your windows, and that shows every star you had. That means you had a service member in the Army, Air Force, or Navy, like this. And the blue stars meaning that you were alive. Blue star, and the silver star meant someone was missing. Gold star means you're dead. So this family had 6 personnel there, and 1 was missing. So, and then it says PA Logli Store, Ankeny, Iowa. And I think they have some of these on display in the thing. So that's how much he thought about being a good patriot, my grandfather. He wanted to support the families during the time of war, even though they were fighting against his native Italy.
And Rico was.
Yes, and Rico was on D-Day, right?
D-Day.
And he got trapped behind enemy lines after the Battle of the Bulge. He was 30 miles behind lines, and they had to evacuate the entire hospital corps and avoid German capture. So it was a different time and space, wasn't it? And it's just, I just feel so bad about where this country has gone now. We just lost something. And anytime we can get together and reminisce about it, I think it's good for our souls. So I think we've about covered everything for today. So we're,
Wonderful, Mark.
okay.